Hey everyone, it's Duncan from overlandjournals.com and welcome to this quick video on my Goolwa beach camping trip report. Now, this is all to do with the, at the beginning of the year, I gave myself a challenge, which is a $350 challenge, I said it. And those of you who watched that the early beginning of the year video where I talked about all my content creation and my trip plans for the remainder of this year, 2019, you would know about the challenge I gave myself. If you didn't see that video and if you're new to this channel, go check it out. I'll leave the link above and in the description below. But the whole idea started because a lot of friends and others who are new into this lifestyle of going overlanding or going off-road, or those who are looking into getting into this lifestyle, they always tend to think that having to go off-road, apart from the fact of getting a vehicle and kitting it all out, but the actual idea of going out is quite costly, and it's not. And I always keep saying it's not. It can be done within a budget. It is relative because it all depends on how far you want to travel, for how many days at a stretch you want to travel. So yeah, the costs do vary, but to get out there just for 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 days, and have a really good time, it's not going to cost you any amount of money. In fact, I feel it'll just cost you pocket change, and that's where this $350 challenge came from. So before I get to the trip costings, which I'll do at the end of every trip video, and the first one was the one that I did to Goolwa Beach a few weekends ago, and if you didn't see that video, go check it out, link above and in the description. That was a beautiful time we had with some friends who went with us, and the trip video came out a few days earlier, so go check that out. But coming back to it, it's a $350 challenge. What I did was I took the $350 and I split it into two. So portion of it into fuel consumption and portion of it towards food, camping fees, if any, and any other associated costs like tour guide fees and that sort of thing. So my 80 series, as you know, it's a petrol and it guzzles petrol, and so my costings are based on that consumption figure. Any other vehicle will be much more economical, so the figures will be better. So in my case, the $350, I kind of split it in the middle, and I said half of that towards fuel and half of it towards the rest of the costs. Now, based on those figures and based on the consumption of my 80 series, that approximately gives me about 500 kilometers return trip. That includes a bit of four-wheel, not a bit, but a fair bit of four-wheel driving, but a bit of low ranging and that sort of thing, and that'll get me a good comfortable 500 kilometers return from my home out to the point wherever I want to go and then back. So that's the thinking about it. Now, as far as food is concerned, we take along only what's at home for our own day-to-day consumption. So whether we go on a trip or not, that's something we incur expense anyway. So that's what we take along when we go on a trip. So that way it's not really an added cost as far as I'm concerned. And then anything else that comes along, there's a lot of free camping places here in Australia. And even if you did have to camp, it's really not very expensive. Even if you stay in a caravan park, you can get some really good value. But I try to avoid caravan parks because I try to avoid crowds, and you can get good value for money even if it is a paying campsite, but where you are a good distance away from other campers. So now, as I said, at the end of after every trip video that I've done, I will bring out a short video like this one where I'll talk about the trip costing and how much it costs me to do this trip. So with the Goolwa trip, which we went on the Australia Day long weekend, the total distance covered was about 210 kilometers, and we were in that particular trip pretty fortunate because of that 210 kilometers, I think that's return 210, almost 90% of it was on blacktop, so it's only the remaining 10%, about 10 to 20 kilometers of beach driving. On the first day when we got there, because of the traffic from the holiday makers, the sand was really churned up, and so we had to do a fair bit of low range driving on the first day. Second day being a Tuesday, because we went on the towards the tail end of the long weekend. There were no more tracks. It was all washed up by the tide coming in, so the driving was much easier. So based on that trip, our costings, here we go. So fuel cost came to $60. That was the fuel cost. And food and drinks came to $93. Total cost $153. In other words, $76.50 per person per day. That's between the two of us. But compared to the fun factor we had, and there's no comparison. $153 versus a huge amount of fun that we had that weekend. And if you watch that video, if you haven't, go check it out, you realize how amount of fun we had, and we had a really ball of a time. So now for some information about the Murray River itself and the place where we camped. Now, Murray River is the longest river in Australia. It spans 2,500 kilometers. It starts from the Australian Alps in the state of Victoria, and it works its way through sort of bordering the state of Victoria and New South Wales, and works its way to where I live, that's the state of South Australia. And it empties into the southeastern part of the Indian Ocean, better known as the Southern Ocean. And where it empties is known as the Murray Mouth, and we camped closer to the Murray Mouth. We visited the Murray Mouth and then we camped pretty close to it. And something to be aware of is free camping is allowed along the beach. No camping is allowed on the dunes. It's for environmental and ecological reasons. Don't litter. It's common sense, but it has to be mentioned. People sometimes tend to forget common sense. So not saying you are, but please be mindful, and if someone else is misbehaving, maybe just go and have a diplomatic word with them. And bring back your litter, and if you find somebody else has littered, bring it back with you. At the end of the day, it creates a bad impression of the wider community. So yeah, try and do your part. But apart from that, have a wonderful time. It's a great place. When you set up camp, be mindful of the tide coming in, especially the high tide. Cell phone signal is available, so you get one of these apps that will give you the tide times. When we were there, high tide was around 1 a.m. I think it was. So, and it kind of tells you more or less how far in it comes, the tide. So set up your camp accordingly so that you're not caught up by surprise. If you'd like to get more details about how I did my planning or what the breakdown further of these expenses, please leave a comment below and I'll reply. If you like this video and you found it useful or fun, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. And for those of you who have subscribed and do follow me on this channel, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You guys give me the encouragement to go out there and do these things. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video real soon.